I was standing in front of the fridge when I heard the yell, "Don't even think about touching that food. My husband's family is coming over for dinner." I froze right there with the package of fresh cheese still in my hand. I looked back and saw my daughter Sarah standing in the kitchen doorway, her arms crossed, her eyes hard, her mouth pressed into a thin line I didn't recognize. I'd stocked that fridge just hours earlier. I'd spent almost $200 of my own money. I'd hauled those heavy bags from the car to the kitchen. At 69 years old, with my knees creaking every time I climbed the stairs, with my back aching every morning when I get up. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at her and waited for her to explain, for her to say it was a joke, for her to laugh and hug me like when she was a kid. But she didn't. If my wife said it, that's how it'll be. The voice came from the hallway. It was Daniel, my son-in-law, the man my daughter chose to share her life with. Tall, always well-dressed, always with that smile that never reaches his eyes. He walked over and put his hand on Sarah's shoulder, a possessive gesture, like marking territory. I still had the cheese in my hand. "Mom, you heard right. I need you not to touch anything in the fridge. Nothing. My in-laws are coming in 2 hours, and I can't serve them just anything. This is important to me, her in-laws, her husband's family, more important than me. More important than the woman who gave birth to her, who fed her as a baby, who stayed up 1,000 nights when she had a fever, who sold her own jewelry to pay for her college." "I understand, honey." That's all I said, because something inside me broke right then. It wasn't a loud break, no explosion, no yelling. It was silent, like when a dry branch snaps, a barely noticeable crack, but final. I put the cheese back in the fridge, closed the door slowly, wiped my hands on my apron, and smiled. I smiled because right then I understood something. I understood that my daughter didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as an obstacle, as someone extra, as someone to get rid of, and I smiled. Because I decided that if they were going to treat me like that, then I'd make my own choices too. I'm going to my room, enjoy the dinner. I walked to the stairs. I felt their eyes on my back, but I didn't turn around. I climbed each step with my back straight, head held high, even though inside everything was shaking. I got to my bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I slept with my husband for 30 years, where I cried when he died 10 years ago, where I was left alone, completely alone, until Sarah convinced me to come live with her. "This is your home too, Mom. You'll always have a place with us." That's what she said 2 years ago, when I sold my little house to help her with the down payment on this one. When I put all my money into this property that was supposed to be for both of us, for the family, for us to have a place together. Lies. It was all lies. I got up and walked to the window. From there I could see the garden, the roses I planted myself, the little lemon tree I put in when I moved here, the herb pots I tend to every morning. I did all that. With my hands, with my effort. Downstairs I heard laughter, music, the doorbell. The in-laws had arrived. I heard Sarah greet them with that sweet voice she doesn't use with me anymore. I heard Daniel offer them drinks. I heard the clatter of plates, the clink of glasses, and I was upstairs, in my room, like a punished kid, like I'd done something wrong, but my only crime was buying the food they were enjoying now. I sat in my chair by the window, the one I brought from my old house, the only piece of furniture Sarah let me keep. We sold or gave away everything else, because she said this house had its own style, and my old things didn't match. I pulled my phone from my pocket, stared at it for a moment. Thought about calling my sister Linda, telling her what happened. But what would I say? That my own daughter banned me from eating in my own home. It would sound ridiculous, like I was exaggerating, like I was some dramatic old lady seeking attention. I put the phone away and sat there, staring out the window, watching the sky get dark. Hours passed. I heard when the in-laws left. I heard when Sarah and Daniel went up to their room. I heard when everything went quiet. Then I went down, carefully, without making noise. The house was dark except for the small light over the stove. I walked to the kitchen, saw the dirty dishes stacked in the sink, Glasses with wine remnants, food scraps on the table, my food, the food I bought, that I paid for, and that I hadn't tasted a bite of. I opened the fridge, looked for something to eat, but it was almost empty. They'd eaten nearly everything. Only some leftovers in plastic containers were left. I took one. It was rice. Cold. I ate it like that, standing, in front of the open fridge, with the light shining on my tired face. And as I ate that cold rice, I understood something else. I understood this wasn't new. This had been happening little by little, so slowly I didn't notice, like when water heats up gradually and the frog doesn't jump because it doesn't sense the danger until it's too late. The small slights, the comments, the looks. It had all been part of a plan, to push me into a corner, to make me feel extra, like a burden, like I should be grateful for a roof over my head. But that roof was mine, too. I put $50,000 down to buy it. Everything I had saved, everything my husband and I scraped together over years, I gave it to Sarah because I trusted her, because she was my daughter, because I thought she'd take care of me like I took care of her. I closed the fridge, washed the empty container, put it away, cleaned up every trace that I'd been there, like a ghost, like someone who didn't have the right to exist in her own home. I went back to my room, lay down, but I couldn't sleep. All night I was thinking, remembering, piecing things together. The last 6 months had been weird. Sarah kept asking me to sign papers that were supposedly from the bank. Renewals, paperwork, boring stuff I didn't understand well. And I signed. Because I trusted. Because she was my daughter. But now I wondered what I'd signed exactly. What were those documents? Why did Sarah insist so much? Why was there always a rush? Why couldn't I read them calmly? I got up before dawn, left my room without a sound, went down to the living room, searched the desk where Sarah keeps important papers, but it was locked. I looked for the key in the obvious places, but didn't find it. Then I went to my room and pulled out my box of personal documents. Looked for the original deed to the house, the document proving I put my money here, that this house was mine too. It wasn't there. The deed wasn't where I'd left it. I searched every paper, every folder. Nothing. It had disappeared. And right then I knew. I knew it with total certainty. They'd stolen from me. My own daughter had stolen from me. Not just my dignity, not just my peace, also my money, my future, my security. I sat on the floor of my room, with all my papers scattered around me, and I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't make a scene, because I understood crying wouldn't get me anything back. Yelling would just make me look like a crazy old lady. No one would believe me if I started accusing without proof. So I decided something else. I decided to be smart, to investigate, to get back what was mine, but quietly, without anyone noticing. Without warning them, I'd already uncovered their betrayal. I put all my papers back, washed my face, combed my hair, dressed like any other day, and when Sarah came down for breakfast, I was already in the kitchen making coffee. "Good morning, Mom. Good morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, very well. Thanks." She smiled, a perfect smile, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't humiliated me the night before, like she hadn't stolen everything. And I smiled too, because now I knew how to play her game, the game of silence, the game of patience, the game of waiting for the exact moment to act. I poured her coffee, made her favorite breakfast, asked about her plans for the day, acted like the perfect mother, like the submissive woman she wanted me to be. But inside I was already planning, already thinking every step, every move, how I'd get my life back, my house, my dignity. Because if I've learned anything in 69 years, it's that revenge is a dish best served cold, very cold, and I had all the time in the world to prepare it. There are moments in life where you wonder exactly when everything started to change. In what precise instant the person you loved turned into someone you don't recognize. I asked myself that question many times in the following days, and always came to the same conclusion. It had all started long before I wanted to admit. Sarah was born when I was 26. It was a tough pregnancy. I was on bed rest the last 4 months. My husband David worked double shifts at the factory to make up for my missed work. We were young. We had dreams. We had plans. And when she was born, everything seemed to make sense. She was a beautiful baby, with big dark eyes, with a smile that lit up any room. I took care of her like she was glass, fed her, bathed her, sang her lullabies my mom taught me. David adored her. He'd come home tired from work but always found energy to play with her, to make her laugh. I remember when she took her first steps. I was in the kitchen making dinner. She held onto the couch edge and pushed forward. She took 3 wobbly steps before falling on her butt. But she'd done it, and I cried with joy. I called David at work to tell him. He left early that day just to see her walk again. We were happy. We didn't have much money. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. The furniture was old, the carpet worn, but it was our home. And that was enough. When Sarah turned 5, she started kindergarten. I got a part-time job at a bakery to help with expenses. David stayed at the factory. We worked hard, saved what we could, dreamed of buying a house someday, of giving Sarah everything we never had. She was a good student, brought home good grades, was in school plays, had friends. She was a normal, happy kid. Or so I thought. Because now looking back, I see things I didn't see then. Small details I ignored because I didn't want to see problems where I thought there weren't any. Like when she was 8 and I asked her to share her toys with the neighbor's daughter. She refused. She stashed all her toys in her room and locked the door. I thought it was just a phase, that all kids go through selfish stages. I talked to her, explained the importance of sharing. She nodded. But she never shared her stuff, or like when she was 12 and found $100 I'd hidden in a drawer for emergencies. She asked if she could buy a dress she'd seen in the store. I said no. That money was for something important. She got mad, didn't talk to me for 3 days, and when she finally did, it was like nothing happened. But the money was gone. I never found it, and she never mentioned it. I should have seen it then, should have paid more attention, but I was so busy working, so tired at the end of the day, so focused on surviving that I didn't notice the signs. David died when Sarah was 19, a massive heart attack at work. He collapsed mid-shift. By the time he got to the hospital, it was too late. I got the call at 3 in the afternoon. My life split in 2 that day, a before and an after. A world with David and a world without him. Sarah didn't cry at the funeral. That surprised me. She was serious, quiet, but dry-eyed. No tears. I asked if she was okay. She said yes, that she was just processing, that she'd cry later. But I never saw her cry for her dad. The next years were hard. David's life insurance was modest, enough to pay for the funeral and leave some savings. I kept working at the bakery, but now I also cleaned houses on weekends. I needed money for Sarah's college. She wanted to study business administration. It was an expensive major, but I was willing to do whatever it took. I sold David's tools, sold his car, sold some jewelry I'd kept, all to pay tuition, to buy her books, to give her money for transportation and food. I ate less, wore the same clothes for years, didn't buy anything unnecessary. Everything was for her. Everything. During college, Sarah only came home when she needed money. She'd call, say she had unexpected expenses, needed to pay for a project. There was a special fee, and I'd give her what she asked, no questions, no doubts, because she was my daughter, because I thought I was investing in her future. She graduated with honors. I was at the ceremony, proud, excited, crying with happiness. It had been worth it. All the sacrifice had been worth it, or so I thought. She got a job quickly, a big company, good salary. She told me now she'd take care of me, that it was her turn to care for me, that everything I'd done for her she'd pay back, multiplied. And I believed her, because I wanted to believe, because I needed to believe my sacrifice meant something. But months passed and nothing changed. She kept asking for money, for a course, for a work trip, for professional clothes, and I kept giving, because that's who I was, who I'd always been. The one who gives, who sacrifices, who puts everyone before herself. She met Daniel at work, introduced him to me 6 months after they started dating. He was polite, well-dressed, came from a family with money, worked at the same place as her, seemed like a good man. And I was happy for her, thought she'd finally found someone to make her happy. They got married the next year, a big wedding at a fancy venue with over 200 guests. I paid my share, $15,000 from my savings. Sarah said it was the least I could do, that the groom's family was paying way more, that she couldn't look bad, and I paid, even though those $15,000 represented years of work, years of sacrifice. At the wedding, she barely saw me. She was busy with her in-laws, with important guests. With me, she barely exchanged 2 words, introduced me as her mom and moved on, like I was just a requirement, an obligation, something to check off and be done. The first months of marriage, they lived in a small apartment. I'd visit on Sundays, bring food, clean a bit, help however I could, but I always felt extra, like an intrusion, like they'd prefer I didn't come. Then they started talking about buying a house. Daniel wanted something bigger, in a better neighborhood, but they didn't have enough for the down payment. They needed $50,000, and they looked at me. "Mom, you have savings, right? You could lend us for the house. We'd pay you back little by little, with interest if you want, and you could live with us. You wouldn't have to be alone anymore. It'd be perfect. A family again." That's what Sarah said. And I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe she was including me in her life, that she was giving me a place in her home, that she finally valued me. I sold my house, the little house David and I bought after years of saving, the house where we raised Sarah, where we were happy. I sold it. And gave her all the money, the full $50,000. She promised to put my name on the deed, promised the house would be ours, that I'd have my room, my space, that I'd always be welcome, and I signed everything they put in front of me, because I trusted, because she was my daughter. But now I understand that was my downfall, the exact moment I lost everything, where I stopped owning my own life, where I became an unwanted guest in what should have been my own home. The first months in the new house were okay. Sarah still kept up appearances, greeted me in the mornings, included me in some conversations, let me cook and help with home decisions. But there was something off, something I couldn't quite pinpoint, an invisible tension floating in the air every time I entered a room. Daniel worked late, came home tired and locked himself in his study. Sarah spent hours on her phone. I kept busy cleaning, cooking, tending the garden, trying to be useful, trying to justify my presence in that house that felt less and less like mine even though it was. One day I found some papers on the dining table, bank documents. I saw them by chance while cleaning. I didn't mean to read anything private, but my name popped up on one page, and that caught my eye. It was a document about the house mortgage. I read quickly, trying to understand. There were numbers, legal terms I didn't get well. But one thing was clear. My name wasn't on the deed as owner. It only showed up as a reference, as someone who'd contributed money, but not as owner. Something cold ran through me. I picked up the paper with shaky hands, read it again, slower, trying to find my name in the list of owners, but it wasn't. Only Sarah Johnson and Daniel Reyes, no one else. I heard footsteps on the stairs, quickly put the paper back and kept cleaning. Sarah came into the living room, looked at me with that expression she'd started using. That mix of annoyance and superiority. "What are you doing, Mom? Cleaning, honey. Just cleaning." She grabbed the papers from the table and left without another word. I stood there, rag in hand, heart racing, with 1,000 questions in my head. That night I couldn't sleep, kept turning over what I'd seen. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe my name was in other documents. In the original deed, Sarah had promised to include me, that the house would be ours. She wouldn't lie to me. She couldn't lie to me, but the doubt was planted. And like a weed, it started to grow, to spread, to poison every thought. The next days I started paying more attention, noticing things I'd overlooked before, like the time Sarah asked me to sign papers without letting me read them well, said they were bank stuff, renewals, boring things not worth reviewing, and I signed, trusting, because she was my daughter. But now those signatures haunted me. What had I signed exactly? What were those documents? Why always in a hurry? Why couldn't I take my time to read? One afternoon while Sarah was at work, I searched the desk in the living room. I needed to find the house deed, needed to see my name there, needed to confirm everything was okay, that I was just being paranoid. But the desk was locked. I looked for the key in obvious spots. Kitchen drawer, bookshelf, entry shelf, nothing, no key. I tried opening it with a paperclip, with a hairpin, but it didn't work. The desk stayed locked, keeping its secrets, protecting them from me. Then I remembered I had my own copy of documents. When I sold my house, I kept everything in a special box. Important papers, my marriage certificate with David, his death certificate, payment receipts, and supposedly the deed to this house, the proof I'd put my money here. I went up to my room, pulled the box from under my bed, opened it with shaky hands, searched through all the papers. Checked every document, every folder, every envelope. The deed wasn't there. It just wasn't where I'd left it. In its place was a receipt, a proof I'd transferred $50,000 to Sarah's account. But nothing else. No document proving my ownership of the house. I sat on the floor, with all the papers scattered around me, trying to remember, when was the last time I saw that deed? Where had I put it? Who else had access to my room? And then I got it. Sarah had a key to my room. I'd given it to her myself, so she could clean when I wasn't there, use the bathroom if hers was occupied. I never thought she'd use it to steal from me, but now it was obvious. She'd come in, searched my things, taken the only document that protected me, and destroyed it, or hidden it, or whatever she did with it. I put all the papers back in the box, closed it, hid it in a different spot, in the back of my closet, behind old boxes, where no one would think to look. That night, Sarah came home late from work, carrying a bag from an expensive store, new clothes, shoes, things that cost hundreds of dollars. I saw her unpack everything in her room, removing tags, trying on in front of the mirror, happy, carefree. And I thought about my $50,000, how that money represented years of my life, years of work, of sacrifice, of getting up early and going to bed late, of eating little to save more, of buying nothing, of living with the bare minimum, all for security, for something of my own, to not be a burden to anyone. And now that money was paying for her fancy clothes, her comfortable life, her big house, while I had nothing, just a room they could take away whenever, just a spot at a table where I was less and less welcome. I went down to the kitchen to make tea, needed to calm my nerves, needed to think clearly, put water on to boil, got my favorite mug, the one I brought from my old house. A simple white ceramic mug with hand-painted flowers. David gave it to me on our first anniversary. I was waiting for the water to boil when Daniel came into the kitchen. Looked at me in that way he'd started using, like I was something in his way, like my presence bothered him. "Emily, I need to talk to you." I turned to him, waited for him to go on. "Sarah and I have been thinking. This house is expensive to maintain. The utilities, the taxes, everything's going up in price. And well, you live here but don't contribute anything. You eat our food, use our electricity, our water. Everything comes out of our pocket." His words hit me like buckets of cold water. Me who just filled the fridge with $200. Me who cleaned the whole house, who cooked, who tended the garden, who did everything I could to not be a burden. But I didn't say any of that, just looked at him, waiting for him to finish. "So we think it would be fair if you paid something. Monthly rent, not much, not just $500 to help with expenses. It's the minimum, really. Any room in this neighborhood costs double. $500. For living in the house I helped buy, in the house where I put all my money, in the house that was supposed to be mine too." "Sure, Daniel. I'll think about it. There's not much to think about, Emily. It's starting next month. Sarah will give you the details." He poured himself a glass of water, drank it slowly, watching me, like waiting for me to say something, to protest, to refuse. But I stayed quiet, still, with my empty mug in my hands. When he left, I turned off the stove. I didn't want tea anymore, didn't want anything, just wanted to go to my room, lock myself in, process everything that was happening. I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last, entered my room, closed the door, sat on my bed, And for the first time in a long time, I let the tears come. I cried silently, face in my hands, body shaking. I cried for my naivety, for my stupidity, for trusting so much, for giving everything without protecting myself, for believing a mother's love was enough. But after a while, the tears dried up, and something else took their place. Something cold, something hard, something I didn't know I had inside. Rage. But not the hot rage that makes you yell. The cold rage that makes you think. The rage that plans, that waits, that acts at the precise moment. I got up, washed my face, looked in the mirror, saw a 69-year-old woman, tired, with wrinkles, with gray hair, but with alert eyes, with determination. I wasn't going to sit idle. I wasn't going to let them steal from me like that. I wasn't going to let them treat me like trash. I'd given too much, sacrificed too much, and now it was time to get back what was mine. The next days were strange. I kept doing everything as usual. Got up early, made breakfast, cleaned the house, tended the garden, but something had changed inside me. I didn't do it with love anymore. I did it with strategy, every move calculated, every word measured, every smile fake. Sarah didn't notice, or maybe didn't care, kept on with her life, her job, her outings, her shopping, treated me like furniture, something there but not worth attention. And I let her think that, because it suited me, because I needed them to lower their guard. I started observing everything more carefully, their schedules, routines, when they left, when they returned, where they kept important things, what conversations they had when they thought I wasn't listening. One morning, while cleaning the living room, I found Sarah's phone on the couch. She'd forgotten it rushing to work. I stared at it for a moment. I knew her password. I'd seen her enter it hundreds of times. 4 simple numbers, her wedding date. I picked up the phone, unlocked it. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. I went to her messages, searched conversations with Daniel. With her friends, with her in-laws. Read fast, taking mental notes of everything. There was a chat with her friend Samantha. Recent messages. I read them with my heart pounding. I'm almost done getting my mom off the deed. The lawyer says in 2 weeks it'll all be set. Finally, I can sell this house and buy something better without her claiming anything. The words hit me like punches. I read the message again, and again, and again, trying to process what I was seeing. She hadn't just taken me off the deed, she planned to sell the house I helped buy, and buy another where I'd have no rights. I kept reading. There were more messages, from weeks back. My mom is so naive. She signs everything I put in front of her. Doesn't even read. Now just one more document and done. Problem solved. Problem. I was a problem to her, her own mother, the woman who gave birth to her, who raised her, who sacrificed her whole life for her, was just a problem to solve. I took photos of all the messages with my own phone. My hands shook so much some came out blurry, but I took several of each. I needed proof, needed to document everything. There was another chat with someone named Leo Thompson, a name I didn't recognize. I opened the conversation. Mrs. Johnson, as I told you last week, we processed the documents you brought. Your mother signed the waiver of rights on the property. Everything's in order. We just need her to sign one last paper and the process will be complete. You can stop by the office any time. A lawyer. She'd gone to a lawyer. Faked documents. Made me sign my own doom. And I didn't even know. I noted the lawyer's name, his phone number, the office address from the chat. Everything. Every detail. Every word. I kept checking. There were photos, scanned documents, copies of papers I'd signed without reading well, contracts, waivers, relinquishments of rights, all there, in her phone, like trophies of her betrayal. I took photos of everything, one by one, making sure they were clear, that every word was legible. This was gold. This was what I needed to prove what they'd done to me. I heard a car in the driveway. My heart stopped. I looked out the window. It was the neighbor. I kept checking the phone. I had little time. Didn't know when Sarah would return. Found a folder called Mom Documents. Opened it. There were copies of my ID, my birth certificate, the deed for my old house, transfer receipts for the money. Everything they needed to steal from me was there, organized, filed, like a criminal file. And then I saw something else, a recent document, a quote for a new house, in another neighborhood, bigger, more expensive, dated last week. They were already looking where to move, already planning to leave me on the street. I took photos of everything, then deleted the call and message history so she wouldn't know I'd been in her phone, left it exactly where I found it, same angle, same position, went up to my room, closed the door, sat on the bed, connected my phone to my old computer, the one I brought from my previous house, transferred all the photos, saved them in a hidden folder, made copies on a USB drive I had stashed, couldn't risk losing that evidence. While transferring the files, I thought about everything I'd seen, about how my own daughter had planned my destruction with such coldness, such precision, like I was just an obstacle in her path, something to remove to move forward. I finished saving everything, hid the USB in a safe spot, inside a box of tampons in my bathroom. No one would look there, especially Daniel. I went down to the kitchen, put water on to boil, get ready. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My mind was strangely calm. Now I knew exactly what I was fighting against, knew how deep the betrayal was, and that gave me power, because knowledge is power, and now I had both. That afternoon, when Sarah got home from work, she was upset, searching for something desperately. "Mom, have you seen my phone?" "No, honey. Where did you leave it?" "I don't know. I had it this morning, but I can't find it." I helped her look. We checked the living room, the kitchen, her room. I acted worried, supportive, like the perfect mom she thought I still was. Here it is. It was between the couch cushions. She took it with relief, quickly checked her messages, her calls. Everything seemed fine. She suspected nothing. Why would she? I was just her naive mom, the dumb old lady who signed whatever was put in front of her. "Thanks, Mom." "No problem, honey." She went to her room. I stayed in the living room, looking out the window, watching the sky get dark. But I didn't feel lost anymore, didn't feel like a victim. Now I knew exactly what to do. The next days I spent investigating, searched online for the lawyer Leo Thompson, found his website. His office was half an hour away. Read about his services, real estate, estates, contracts, exactly what Sarah needed to steal from me. I also searched for info on my rights, on what I could do if someone tricked me into signing documents, read legal articles, forums, testimonies from others who'd been through similar situations, took notes, saved links, prepared. One afternoon while Sarah and Daniel were at work, I went to the bank, the same bank where we'd done the house mortgage, asked to speak with an executive. A young woman about 30 attended me with a professional smile. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you? I need info on a property. I'm a co-owner, but I don't have copies of the documents. Want to know how to get them?" She asked for my ID. I gave it. She typed something on her computer. Frowned. "Mrs. Thompson, according to our records, you don't appear as owner of any property. That's impossible. I put $50,000 toward the down payment on a house. I have the transfer receipt." I showed her the receipt I'd kept. She reviewed it, typed more on her computer. "I see the transfer here, but it was made to Sarah Johnson's name, not as part of a co-ownership contract. It was a gift, a donation. So you have no rights over the property." Her words confirmed my worst fears. They'd tricked me from the start. Never intended to put me on the deed. It was all a plan to take my money. "Is there anything I can do?" "You'd have to consult a lawyer, ma'am. We only handle the financial part, but if you signed documents waiving your rights, it'll be hard to recover anything." I thanked her, left the bank, walked to a bench in the nearby park, sat down, breathed deep. The cold air filled my lungs, cleared my mind. Now I knew 3 things for sure. First, they'd legally stolen from me. Second, I had proof of the conspiracy. Third, I needed a lawyer, a good one not on Sarah's side. I pulled out my phone, searched for lawyers specializing in family fraud, found several. Read reviews, compared prices, noted numbers. I'd call the next day, because now I wasn't alone in this. Now I had information, had proof, had a plan. I walked home slowly, thinking every step, every move. Sarah and Daniel weren't home yet. The house was empty, silent, like a stage waiting for the play to start. And I was ready to act, ready to get back what was mine, ready to show them they'd underestimated the wrong person. The next day I waited for Sarah and Daniel to leave for work, dressed carefully, chose my best clothes, a simple but presentable dress, combed my hair, put on light makeup, wanted to look respectable, trustworthy, like someone who should be believed. Took my purse, put in all the proof I'd gathered, printed photos, receipts, the USB with all the info from Sarah's phone, all organized in a folder, left the house and walked to the bus stop. The ride downtown took 40 minutes. I looked out the window the whole way, watching streets pass, buildings, people busy with their lives, and thought about how my life had come to this, how I'd gone from having my own house to begging for justice. The lawyer's office I'd found was in an old building. I climbed stairs to the 3rd floor. My knees complained with each step, but I kept going, because this was important. This was my future. I knocked on the door. A secretary greeted me. I explained I needed an urgent legal consultation. She made me wait in a small room. There were old magazines on a table, cheap pictures on the walls, but the place looked clean, organized, professional. After 20 minutes, they called me. I entered an office where a man about 50 waited. Gray hair, glasses, simple suit. He offered me a seat with a kind gesture. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm attorney Mike O'Brien. Tell me what brings you here." And I told him everything from the beginning. How I sold my house, how I gave $50,000, how they promised to put me on the deed, how they made me sign papers without explaining, how I discovered the betrayal. As I talked, I pulled out all the documents, the photos, the proof. He listened silently, taking notes, reviewing each paper I showed him. His expression was serious, focused. He didn't interrupt once. Let me empty everything I'd held in. When I finished, there was a long silence. He kept reviewing the documents, especially the photos of Sarah's messages, read them several times, then looked at me. "Mrs. Thompson, this is fraud, abuse of trust, possibly document forgery. Your daughter and son-in-law could face serious criminal charges. I just want my money back, or my rights to the house. Whatever's fair. I understand. But I need to be honest with you. This will be tough. You signed documents waiving your rights. Even if you didn't fully understand, the fact is your signature is there. That complicates things. But I have proof they tricked me. The messages, the conversations, it's all there." "Yes, and that's good. Very good. This shows intent to defraud, premeditation. That helps us. We can file a lawsuit for fraud and voiding of documents. But I need you to understand this could take time, months, maybe a year or more." My hopes sank a bit. A year. I could survive another year in that house, enduring the disdain, the humiliation, paying rent for something that should be mine. How much would all this cost? My fees are $200 an hour. For a case like this, we're talking about roughly $10,000 total, maybe more depending on how complicated it gets. $10,000. I didn't have it. I barely had $5,000 saved, the last of a lifetime of work. He must have seen my expression because he added, "I can do something for you, Mrs. Thompson. I can work with a $3,000 advance, and the rest we pay when we win the case, when you recover your money. But I need to be clear. If we lose, you'd still have to pay my full fees." It was a risk. But what choice did I have? Stay quiet and lose everything, or fight and maybe recover something? I accept. What do you need me to do? First, I need you to sign a contract with me. Then we'll request from the public registry copies of all documents related to the property. We'll get certified copies of everything your daughter submitted, and we'll prepare a formal lawsuit. How long does that take? About a month to gather everything. Then we file the lawsuit. Your daughter and son-in-law will be notified. They'll have to respond. That's when things get interesting. They'll know it was me. They'll know I sued them. Yes, no way to avoid it. But Mrs. Thompson, you have the right to defend yourself, to fight for what's yours. Don't let fear stop you now. He was right. I'd come this far. I'd uncovered the truth. I had the proof. I couldn't back down now. I signed the contract, gave him a check for $3,000, almost everything I had in the bank. He gave me copies of everything, explained the next steps, said he'd keep me informed of every progress. I left his office feeling strange, scared but also relieved. Finally, I'd done something. Finally, I'd taken action. I wasn't just a victim waiting for things to get better. Now I was someone who fought. The ride home I did in silence, thinking about what was coming, about how they'd react when they got the lawsuit notice, what they'd say, what they'd do. I got home before them, changed clothes, hid all my documents in the secret spot, started making dinner like nothing happened, like it was a normal day. When they arrived, I greeted them as usual. Sarah barely looked at me. Daniel didn't even respond to my greeting. We ate in silence, each in our own world, and I watched, stored every detail, every gesture of disdain, every moment of humiliation, because all that gave me more strength to keep going. The next days were waiting. Attorney O'Brien called every week to update me. He'd requested the documents from the public registry, was reviewing everything, preparing the legal strategy, asked for patience. Meanwhile, I kept documenting everything at home, every time Sarah treated me badly, every comment, every slight. I started recording conversations on my phone, carefully, without them noticing. Didn't know if they'd be legal, but wanted everything on record. One day, a certified envelope came in the mail. It was from the public registry, documents the lawyer had requested. I took it before anyone saw, hid it in my room. That night, I opened it with shaky hands. Inside were copies of everything. The house deed only with Sarah and Daniel's names. The documents I'd signed waiving rights I didn't even know I had. All there, in black and white. Proof of my naivety, of my stupidity, of how they'd used me. But there was more. Inconsistencies. Dates that didn't match. Signatures that looked different. The lawyer had marked several points with sticky notes. "This is useful. We can use this. Possible forgery." I felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was a chance. Maybe I could win this. 3 more weeks passed. Attorney O'Brien called me to his office. When I arrived, he had everything ready on his desk. A stack of organized papers, legal documents, the lawsuit ready. "Mrs. Thompson, we're ready. I'll file the lawsuit tomorrow. In 2 or 3 days, your daughter and son-in-law will get the notice. I want you to be prepared for their reaction. It won't be pleasant." "I know. I'm ready. I also need to warn you. They might try to intimidate you, pressure you to drop the lawsuit, threaten to kick you out. If that happens, call me immediately. We have legal resources to protect you." I thanked him. Left his office with a mix of fear and determination. In 2 days, everything would explode. In 2 days, no turning back. That night, I barely slept. Thought about all the possibilities, all the ways this could go wrong. But also thought about justice, about getting my dignity back, about showing them they couldn't just steal from me and get away with it. The attorney filed the lawsuit on a Friday. Called to confirm. "It's done, Mrs. Thompson. Now we just wait." The weekend was endless. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart raced. But nothing happened. Sarah and Daniel went on with their normal lives, oblivious to what was coming. Monday morning, the mailman came, rang the bell. I opened the door. He had 2 certified envelopes, one for Sarah Johnson, another for Daniel Reyes, lawsuit for fraud and voiding of documents. I signed for them, took the envelopes, stared at them for a long moment. This was the moment, the point of no return. I could hide them, throw them away, pretend they never came, or leave them where Sarah would find them, and face the consequences. I left them on the dining table, in a visible spot, where they couldn't be missed, and went up to my room, to wait, to prepare for the storm coming. Sarah got home from work at 6 in the evening. I heard her open the door, heard her steps in the entry, and then heard the silence, that heavy silence right before an explosion. "Mom, come down right now." Her voice sounded different, tense, furious. But there was something else, fear maybe, or panic. I got up from my bed, breathed deep, and went down the stairs. She was standing in the living room, with the opened envelope in one hand, the lawsuit papers in the other, her face red, eyes shining with rage. Daniel was next to her, holding his own envelope, looking at me with pure hate. "What is this? What the hell is this, Mom?" She said each word slowly, like trying to control herself, like about to burst. "It's a lawsuit. For fraud. For stealing my money and my rights to this house. Stealing from you. We didn't steal anything. You gave us that money. You signed all the documents. Everything was legal. You tricked me, made me sign things without telling me what they were, promised this house would be mine too, and lied. You're crazy. You're completely crazy, you old woman. No one forced you. You wanted to help. And now you come with this." "I have proof, Sarah. Messages, conversations, everything where you plan to sell this house and leave me on the street, where you tell your friends I'm a problem, that you're getting me off the deed." Her face changed, color drained for a moment, looked at me with what might have been fear, but quickly masked it with more rage. "You checked my phone, went through my private stuff. That's invasion of privacy, Mom. That's a crime. And stealing from your mother isn't. Tricking her, making her sign fake documents, taking everything she has. That's fine according to you." Daniel stepped closer, his face hard, threatening. He stood very close to me, trying to intimidate with his height. "Listen well, Emily. You're dropping this lawsuit right now. Or you're out of this house today, tonight, with nothing. See where you'll live. See who takes you in. I'm not going anywhere. This house is mine too. I put my money here, and I'll fight until I get it back. Your money. That money was a gift. Help. No one forced you to give it. And now you claim like we're thieves. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, what you've done for me, you have me paying rent in my own house, ban me from eating food I buy, treat me like trash. That's what you've done for me." Sarah laughed, a bitter laugh. No humor. "You know what, Mom? Do what you want. Sue us. Fight all you want. But I warn you, you won't win. We have better lawyers than yours. We have money. We have time. And in the end, when you lose, you'll be left with nothing. No house, no money, no dignity. I have no dignity left. You took it. But I'll get everything else back, even if it's the last thing I do. Go to your room. I don't want to see you. You disgust me." Her words hurt, but I didn't show it, kept my face serious, back straight, and climbed the stairs without looking back. That night I heard them call the lawyer Leo Thompson, heard fragments of the conversation through the walls. They were scared, worried. The lawyer was saying something they didn't like. I heard Sarah yell, Daniel curse. I stayed awake late, listening, mentally documenting everything. This was just the beginning. I knew they'd try something more, something worse, and I had to be prepared. The next days were tense. Sarah and Daniel barely spoke to me. When they did, it was to insult me, to remind me I was ungrateful, a traitor, a bad mother. But while they attacked me, I noticed something interesting. Sarah kept posting on her social media, photos at fancy restaurants, at spas, at clothing stores, smiling, posing, acting like her life was perfect, buying peace for my soul. Sometimes you have to distance yourself from negativity to shine. That was one of her posts, with a photo of her sipping wine at a fancy place, 120 likes, comments from her friends saying how strong she was, how inspiring, how brave. And I thought about the irony, about how the negativity she mentioned was me, her mother, the woman who sacrificed everything for her. Now negativity to distance from. But I kept watching, kept taking screenshots of every post, every comment, every show of her luxury life paid with my money. One afternoon while they were out, Attorney O'Brien called. "Mrs. Thompson, I have news. Your daughter's lawyer filed a response to our lawsuit. They deny everything, say you gave the money voluntarily as a gift, that you signed all documents knowingly, that now you're regretting and want back what you gifted. It was expected." What next? Now comes the evidence presentation phase. Both sides submit everything we have. Documents, testimonies, evidence. Then the judge decides if there's enough case for trial. How long does that take? 3 or 4 months minimum. But Mrs. Thompson, I have to tell you something important. Your daughter's lawyer contacted me, wants to negotiate an out-of-court settlement. What kind of settlement they offer to give back $20,000 in exchange for dropping the lawsuit and signing a document waiving any future rights to the property. $20,000 of the $50 I put in. Not even half. Exactly. It's a low offer, insulting even, but it's something, and it'd avoid years of litigation, of stress, of legal expenses. No, I won't accept. I want what's mine, or my rights to the house. I won't take less. I understand. I just wanted you to know there's an offer on the table. But if you want to go forward, we'll go. We'll fight to the end. That's what I want. To the end. I hung up feeling strong, decided. They thought they could buy my silence with crumbs, that they could offer a fraction of what they stole, and I'd accept gratefully. But they were wrong. That night at dinner, Sarah mentioned the settlement, like it was casual talk. "Mom, our lawyer talked to yours. We offered you $20,000 to end all this. You should accept. It's best for everyone. I won't accept. I want what's mine." "Nothing's yours, Mom. We already told you. That money was a gift. But we're being generous. Offering something you don't even have a right to. Then why offer it? If you're so sure I have no right to anything." She went quiet. Daniel jumped in. "Because we want to end this circus. Because it's embarrassing. Because you're making a fool of yourself. Take the money and go. Find a place to live. And leave us alone. I'm not going. And I won't accept less than I deserve." Sarah dropped her fork on the plate. The noise echoed in the silence. "You're impossible. You're stubborn and selfish. Your whole life has been like that, always thinking only of yourself. You never cared about anyone else." Her words left me breathless. How could she say that? How could she twist everything like that? Me, who'd sacrificed my whole life, gave everything, never asked for anything in return, and now selfish for wanting back what they stole. I didn't respond, got up from the table, put away my plate, and went up to my room. Because I knew if I stayed, I'd say things I might regret, things that could be used against me. The next weeks were more of the same. Them trying to pressure me, trying to make me drop the lawsuit, threatening to kick me out, to cut off services, to make my life hell. And meanwhile, Sarah kept on social media, posting about her perfect life, about how she'd learned to set boundaries, to protect her mental peace, to distance from toxic people. I've learned I don't owe anyone anything, not even family. My mental health comes first. And if that means cutting ties, then cut them. No guilt, no regrets. That post got 200 likes. Her friends commented how proud they were of her, how strong she was, how mature. And I wondered if they knew the truth. If they knew the toxic person she talked about was her mother, the woman who gave her life. But I kept going, kept gathering evidence, kept working with my lawyer, kept preparing for what was coming. Because I knew this wasn't over, that the worst was still ahead. And I was right. 3 months after filing the lawsuit came the first hearing date. Attorney O'Brien had prepared me for this, explained what to expect, how to behave, what to say and not say, but nothing could really prepare me for how it felt seeing my own daughter across the courtroom. I arrived early, dressed in my best clothes, a simple suit I'd bought years ago for David's funeral, combed my hair carefully, wanted to look respectable, dignified, like someone telling the truth. Sarah arrived with Daniel and her lawyer, Leo Thompson. She wore an expensive dress, designer shoes, perfect makeup, looked successful, professional, like the victim of a problem mom. Exactly the image she wanted to project. She didn't look at me when she entered, not once. Acted like I was invisible, like I didn't exist. And that hurt more than any insult. The judge entered. We all stood. He was an older man, about 60, serious face and thick glasses. He sat and started reviewing the case documents. "Okay, we're here for a lawsuit of fraud and voiding of documents. Mrs. Emily Thompson against her daughter Sarah Johnson and son-in-law Daniel Reyes. Attorney O'Brien, present your case." My lawyer stood, spoke with a clear, firm voice, explained how I sold my house, how I gave $50,000 for the new property's down payment, how they promised to include me on the deed, how they made me sign papers without fully explaining, how I discovered they planned to sell the house without my knowledge. He presented the proof, the messages I took from Sarah's phone, documents with inconsistencies, transfer receipts, all organized, all clear, all damning. The judge reviewed each document carefully, took notes, asked questions. Attorney O'Brien answered precisely, confidently. I started feeling hope. Then it was Attorney Thompson's turn. He stood with a confident smile, calculated moves, like he knew he'd win. Your Honor, this case is simple. Mrs. Emily Thompson decided to help her daughter buy a house. She did it voluntarily. No one forced her. She signed all necessary documents, fully aware. Now she regrets and wants back what she gifted. That's not fraud, that's buyer's remorse. He presented documents I signed, papers where I supposedly waived rights to the property. My signature was there, clear, undeniable. I felt dizzy seeing it, because I didn't remember signing that. Plus, Your Honor, Mrs. Thompson has lived in the property rent-free for 2 years, has had all the benefits of a $500,000 house without contributing to expenses. And now she has the nerve to sue her own benefactors. Benefactors. That word burned. Like they'd done me a favor. Like I was a beggar grateful for crumbs. The judge raised his hand to silence him. Attorney Thompson, I'm seeing text messages where your client clearly states she's removing her mother from the deed through deception, that she plans to sell the property without her knowledge. How do you explain that Thompson didn't flinch? Private conversations, Your Honor. Obtained illegally. Mrs. Thompson violated my client's privacy by checking her phone without permission. Those messages shouldn't be admitted as evidence. They were obtained by a worried mother suspecting fraud. No hacking, no theft, just checked a phone in her own home and found proof of a crime. The judge kept reviewing documents, asked more questions to both sides. I answered when it was my turn, with a shaky but clear voice. Told my story, how I trusted my daughter, how they tricked me, how I found the truth. Sarah spoke too, with tears in her eyes, voice breaking. Acted like the hurt daughter, the victim of a manipulative mom trying to extort her. My mother has always been like this, Your Honor, always controlling, always wanting power over my life. We offered her a home, gave her everything, and now she repays us with this lawsuit, with these horrible accusations. It hurts. It hurts so much that my own mother thinks I'm capable of stealing from her. Her performance was perfect, cried at the right moment, voice trembled when it should, looked at the judge with pleading eyes. And I saw how he watched her, how his expression softened a bit. And right then, I understood something. Understood that truth doesn't always win, that sometimes who acts best, who lies best, who has the better lawyer, that's who wins. The hearing lasted 3 hours. At the end, the judge said he needed time to review all the evidence, that he'd give his ruling in 2 weeks, that both parties should wait for his decision. We left the court in silence. Sarah and Daniel drove off in their new car, a luxury vehicle costing over $50,000, bought after I gave them my money. I took the bus home, as always. Attorney O'Brien walked me to the stop. How do you think it went? Good, Mrs. Thompson. It went good. We have strong proof. The judge saw the inconsistencies, saw the messages. I think we have a shot. But he wasn't sure. I could hear it in his voice, in how he avoided looking me straight in the eyes. There was doubt, and that doubt terrified me. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. At home, the atmosphere was unbearable. Sarah didn't talk to me at all. Daniel looked at me with pure hate. I ate in my room, stayed locked in most of the time, like a ghost in my own house. But I kept documenting, kept gathering evidence, just in case I needed to appeal, in case I had to keep fighting. Then the day came. Attorney O'Brien called early in the morning. Mrs. Thompson. The judge gave his ruling. My heart stopped. I waited. Seconds felt like hours. We won the first part. The judge determined there's enough evidence of fraud, ordered a deeper investigation, and best of all, ordered that any attempt to sell the property be frozen until the case is fully resolved. I couldn't believe it. I'd won something. Not everything, but something. The judge believed me, had seen the truth. What does that mean exactly? It means your daughter can't sell the house, can't make any moves with the property without court approval. And it means we're going to full trial. That's where we'll fight for voiding the documents and getting your money back." It was a small victory, but a victory. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. When Sarah got the notice that afternoon, her reaction was explosive. I heard yells from my room, things breaking, curses, Daniel trying to calm her out of control. I went down the stairs, needed to see her face. Needed to see the moment she realized she wouldn't get away so easily. She was in the living room, papers scattered everywhere, face red, fists clenched. "This is your fault. All this is your fault. Now we can't sell. Can't do anything with this house because of you. It's my house too. I put my money here, and I won't let you sell it without me getting back what's mine. I hate you. I hate you so much. I wish you'd never come live here. I wish you'd stayed in your old house and left us alone. I did stay in my house. You convinced me to sell it. You asked for the money. You promised this would be my house too, and lied. So don't come at me saying it's my fault. Get out. Get out now. I don't want you here. I'm not going. The judge ordered you can't touch this property. That includes kicking me out. So I'm staying, and I'll stay until this is resolved." I went up the stairs before she could respond, entered my room, locked the door. And for the first time in months, I let myself smile. I'd landed the first real blow. I'd shown I wouldn't give up, that I wouldn't let them trample me. And though there was still a long way, though the fight was just starting, I'd won this battle. And that was enough for now, enough to keep going, enough to keep fighting, enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, justice existed. I sat on my bed, pulled out my phone, and texted Attorney O'Brien, "Thanks. Please, don't give up, Mrs. Thompson. We're just starting, and we're going to win." And I believed him, because I had no other choice, because I'd come too far to back down, because my dignity, my future, my life, everything depended on this, and I wouldn't fail. Not now. Not after everything I'd been through. Not after finding the strength I didn't know I had. This was my fight, and I'd win it, no matter the cost. The next months were a silent war. Sarah and Daniel couldn't kick me out by judge's order. Couldn't sell the house. They were stuck with me as much as I was stuck with them. And that drove them crazy. They started with small tactics. Petty ones, like stopping buying things I used. My favorite coffee, my brand of bread. Said if I wanted those, pay for them myself. And I did. Without complaining, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. They cut the internet to my room, said it was to save, but theirs kept working fine. I went to the public library to use computers when I needed. I adapted. They changed locks on some house areas. The basement, the garage, the study, like marking territory, like saying you don't belong here. And I let them. Because those small battles didn't matter. The big war wasn't over. But while they played those childish games, I kept gathering evidence, documenting everything, every act of hostility, every attempt to make my life hell. Everything was recorded. Everything helped. Attorney O'Brien worked the case, filed more documents, more proof, got testimonies from neighbors confirming I lived there, that I took care of the house, that I'd put money into the property. 6 months after the first hearing came the full trial date. This time it'd be final. The judge would decide if the documents I signed were valid or if I'd been frauded. Decide if I got my money back or lost everything. The night before, I couldn't sleep. Stared at the ceiling, thinking all possibilities. What I'd do if I won. What if I lost? How my life had come to this. The trial day dawned gray, cloudy, like the sky knew what was at stake. I dressed carefully. The same suit from the first hearing. My hands shook buttoning it. The courtroom was fuller this time, more people, more witnesses. The case had drawn attention, a mother suing her daughter, a family betrayal story, the kind people find fascinating in a morbid way. Sarah arrived with a full team, her attorney Thompson, 2 legal assistants. Daniel and his parents, all dressed impeccably, all projecting success, power, money, trying to intimidate with their presence. I arrived alone with Attorney O'Brien, but I didn't feel small. Not this time. Because I knew truth was on my side, and that was worth more than all their money. The trial lasted 2 full days. Each side presented arguments, witnesses, proof. Attorney Thompson brought experts who analyzed my signature, said it was authentic on all documents, that I'd signed knowingly. But Attorney O'Brien brought his own experts, graphologists who found inconsistencies, small differences in some signatures, different pen pressure, slightly different angles, enough for reasonable doubt. I took the stand, told my full story, with a firm voice, no crying, no drama, just the simple, painful truth. How I trusted my daughter, how they promised to include me in the property, how I found they'd lied. Attorney Thompson cross-examined me harshly, trying to make me look like a liar, like a manipulative mom after money. Asked why I didn't read the documents before signing, why I trusted so much, why I regretted now. I don't regret trusting. I regret trusting the wrong people. A mother shouldn't have to read fine print when her daughter asks for help. A mother should trust her own daughter won't steal from her. My answer hung in the courtroom silence. I saw some jurors nod slightly, saw the judge note my words. Then it was Sarah's turn. She took the stand in her expensive dress, perfect makeup, prepared performance. She cried, said she loved me, never wanted to hurt me, that it was all a misunderstanding. I just wanted to help my mom, Your Honor. Give her a home. But she's very controlling, wants power over everything. She signed those documents freely. And now that things didn't go her way, she's punishing us with this lawsuit. Her voice broke at the right moments. Tears fell when they should. It was a masterful act. And I saw some in the room moved, looking at her with sympathy. But then Attorney O'Brien did something brilliant. He projected on a big screen the messages Sarah sent. The conversations where she planned to remove me from the deed, where she called me a problem, where she mocked how easy it was to trick me. Ms. Johnson, can you explain these messages? Here it says, literally, my mom is so naive she signs everything I put in front of her. Those are your words, right? Sarah's face changed, color drained, looked to her lawyer for help. But Thompson could only object, saying the messages were obtained illegally. The judge had already admitted the evidence. It was too late to stop. I was angry, frustrated. I didn't mean it literally, but you wrote it, thought it, and more important, did it. Carried out a plan to defraud your own mother. It wasn't fraud. It was a gift she now wants back. A gift you planned to secure through tricks. A gift from which you planned to cut your mother without her knowing to then sell the property. That, Ms. Johnson, isn't a gift. That's theft. Sarah didn't know what to say. Stayed quiet, looking at her lawyer, searching for the right words. But didn't find them. Because there were no words to explain what she'd done. The trial continued. More witnesses, more documents, more arguments from both sides. But I knew the crucial moment had passed. When Sarah couldn't explain those messages. When she was exposed to everyone. The judge took a recess to deliberate. 3 hours that felt like 3 years. I waited on a bench outside the courtroom. Attorney O'Brien tried to calm me, give me hope. But I was beyond hope, in a place of acceptance, ready for whatever came. Finally, they called us back. Everyone took places. The judge entered, his expression serious, unreadable. I've reviewed all evidence from both parties, heard the testimonies, analyzed the documents, and reached a conclusion. The silence in the room was total. No one breathed. No one moved. I find there's enough evidence of fraud, that Mrs. Emily Thompson was tricked through false promises to give her money, that she signed documents without full understanding of implications, and there was deliberate intent to exclude her from rights to the property she helped buy. My heart beat faster. Attorney O'Brien squeezed my hand. Therefore, I order the following. The documents signed by Mrs. Thompson waiving her rights are void. Mrs. Thompson has right to 50% of the property, or alternatively to full reimbursement of the $50,000 she contributed plus accrued interest totaling another $15,000, total $65,000. I'd won. After months of fighting, of humiliation, of doubts, I'd won. Justice existed after all. Additionally, I order Ms. Sarah Johnson and Mr. Daniel Reyes to pay Mrs. Emily Thompson's legal costs. and impose a $10,000 fine for intentional fraud against a vulnerable family member. I heard a choked cry behind me. It was Sarah. Her face had lost all color. Daniel held her arm. Both looked destroyed. Parties have 30 days to comply with this order, or asset seizure will proceed. Case closed. The gavel bang echoed like thunder. And with that sound, it ended. I'd won. I'd gotten back my dignity, my money, my life. I left the court head high. Attorney O'Brien congratulated me, hugged me, celebrated the victory. But I felt strangely empty, because yes, I'd won money, won justice. But I'd lost my daughter, and that loss hurt more than all the money in the world. The 30 days the judge gave them to pay passed in unbearable tension. Sarah and Daniel had to take a loan, sell their new car, empty their savings, everything to gather the $75,000. 65 for me. 10 fine to the state. I kept living in the house during that time, but now it was different. Now I had power. Now they had to treat me carefully because the judge made clear any hostility could lead to more sanctions. We didn't talk, crossed in hallways like ghosts, each in our own world, waiting for this nightmare to end. Though for each the nightmare meant something different. The day I got the check was strange. No ceremony, no words. Attorney Thompson came personally, handed me the check, $75,000, more than I'd lost. I took it with hands that no longer shook, that no longer doubted. Thanks, attorney. He just nodded, looked tired, defeated, like this battle cost him more than just time and effort. When he left, I stared at the check a long time. This piece of paper represented my victory, my justice, but also the final end of my relationship with my daughter, because after this, no going back, no way to repair what was broken. That afternoon, I called a real estate agent, asked her to help find a small place, a one-bedroom apartment, something simple, something mine, something no one could take away. In 2 weeks, I found the perfect spot. An apartment in an old but well-kept building. It had a small kitchen, full bath, living room with big window letting in sun, and a tiny balcony fitting 2 pots. Cost $250,000. I bought it cash, no mortgage, no debts. Completely mine, in my name. With deeds I reviewed line by line with my own lawyer before signing. Moving day, I hired 2 men to help. I didn't have much. My clothes, my books, my photos, the box with important documents, the balcony plants I'd tended for years, the ceramic mug David gave me. That was all. Sarah didn't come out of her room when I left. No goodbye, no last hug, no reconciliation words, just silence. A heavy silence saying more than 1,000 words. Daniel was in the living room when I carried down my last box, looked at me with what might have been regret, or maybe just relief I was finally going. Emily, I'm sorry for everything. They were the only words he said to me in months. I didn't respond. What could I say that I forgave him, that everything was fine, when nothing was fine, when it never would be again? I just nodded and walked out that door for the last time. My new apartment was small, quiet, empty, but mine. I spent the first night sitting on the floor, no furniture yet, with a hot tea mug in my hands, looking out the window at city lights. And I cried for everything I'd lost, for the daughter I thought I had, for the family that never really existed, for years wasted believing empty promises. I cried until no tears left, until the pain became more manageable, something I could live with. The next months were rebuilding. Bought simple furniture, a bed, a small table, 2 chairs, a comfy armchair for reading, nothing expensive, nothing showy, just what's needed to live with dignity. I used some leftover money to take a baking course, something I'd always wanted but never had time. Learned to make cakes, cookies, artisanal bread, and discovered I had talent for it. Started selling my products to neighbors, to local shops. Not much money, but mine, earned with my effort, without depending on anyone, without owing favors. One April afternoon while watering plants on the balcony, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. but something told me to. Mom. Sarah's voice hit me like a punch to the gut. I hadn't spoken to her in 8 months, since the day I left her house. Hello, Sarah. Silence on the other end, heavy breathing, like searching for the right words. I just wanted you to know Daniel and I are divorcing. He blames me for everything that happened, for losing the money, for the shame, for everything. And I'm alone now, Mom. Everyone turned their back on me. Her voice broke. She started crying. And part of me, that part that's always her mother, wanted to comfort her, wanted to say everything would be okay. That I forgave her, that we could start over. But another part of me, the part that was betrayed, stolen from, humiliated, that part stayed firm. I'm sorry for what you're going through, Sarah. I really am. But I can't be your support now, not after everything. But you're my mom. You're all I have. And you were my daughter. You were all I had. And you stole from me, betrayed me, made me feel worthless. So no, I can't be what you need now. Maybe someday. But not now. Mom, please, take care, Sarah. I wish you the best. Really. But I need time. A lot of time. I hung up before she could respond, before my resolve weakened, turned off the phone, and stood there, shaking, crying, but also feeling strong, because I'd set a boundary, because I'd chosen my own peace over guilt. More months passed. Fall turned to winter, winter to spring. Life went on. I made new friends in the building, women my age, widows, divorced, women with their own stories of pain and survival. We had tea together Thursdays, shared recipes, laughed, lived. One April afternoon on my balcony watering plants, I saw something that made me smile. One of the succulents I'd brought from Sarah's house had bloomed. A small flower, pink, delicate. It survived the transplant, the change, and now bloomed more beautiful than before. And I realized I was like that plant. They'd uprooted me from where I thought was home, hurt me, almost destroyed me. But I survived, adapted, and now I was blooming again, in my own space, on my own ground, at my own pace. That night I made a simple dinner, vegetable soup, homemade bread, herbal tea, sat at my small table by the window, ate slowly, savoring each bite, grateful for each moment of peace. I didn't have much. No big house, no perfect family, no dreams I once imagined, but I had something better, my dignity, my peace, my freedom, and the satisfaction of knowing I didn't stay silent, didn't let them trample me, that I fought for what was mine. Before bed, I wrote lines in my journal, something I'd started as therapy, and wrote the most important truth I'd learned in all this. I didn't win by yelling louder. I won by proving the truth. I didn't stoop to their level, didn't fill with hate, just presented the facts, and that hurt more than any insult. That's my victory, not becoming what they were to me, not losing my essence in recovering my life. I closed the journal, turned off the light, and lay in my bed, in my apartment, in my home, and for the first time in years slept deeply. No nightmares, no fears, just peace, because I'd closed that door. Not for revenge, not for hate, but for love, self-love, the kind of love I'd forgotten I deserved, the kind no daughter, no son-in-law, no false promise could take away. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.